Decimals are kind of tricky, aren't they? We're going to practice adding and subtracting decimals. Adding and subtracting. I guess the key lesson when you're adding and subtracting decimals is to write them nice and neatly on top of each other with the exact same number of spaces after the dot, even if one is bigger than the other. Let's show you what I mean. If we had 37.3 added to 28.21, our first step is to write them one on top of each other. So 37.3, and then exactly in the right place, just so the tens are with the tens, and the units are with the units, and the decimals are with the decimals. It'd be like that, 21.21. Now, you notice how that 3 is only one number, but the 1 after the 21 is two numbers. What I'm going to do is, when there's a gap like that, I'm just going to write 0, because that gap means nothing, so I might as well just write 0. What this enables me to do is add them nice and neatly, and we'll get straight to the final answer. Now we can just do 0 plus 1. Before, if it was all jumbled up or in a different order or not lined up properly, it would get really confusing what we're adding. Do we add the 1 to the 3, or what do we do? Well, now, because they're nice and neat on top of each other, and we've added the 0 so there's the same number for both of them, we can add them. 0 and 1 is 1. So we're adding these two numbers. 0 and 1 is 1. 3 and 2 is 5. Then we have the dot, don't forget the dot, so we put a dot in. 7 and 1 is 8, and 3 and 2 is 5. So our answer is 58.51. Let's do a more complicated one. How about 527.936 add 49.55. Again, we write 527.936 exactly on top of 49.55, and you've noticed that this number has 3 numbers after the decimal point. The 527 has 3 numbers after the decimal place, but the 49 only has 2. So I'm going to add in a 0, because it's nothing, so it doesn't change the number, just so that they both have the same number of numbers after the decimal point. Now we can add them. So we draw a line underneath. 6 and 0 is 6. 5 and 3 is 8. 9 and 5 is 14. Here's what you do when it's a number that's 10 or bigger. You put the number on the right of that number. So with the 14 you get the 4, the units. You write that down here, and you write the tens, the 1 in this case, up here in small writing. Just up here, so like a 1 here. That reminds you to add that 1, that 10 from the 14, because we brought the 4 down here, so now we have the 10 left over to this column. Don't forget the dot, so we put the dot in. 7, 1 and 9 adds up to 17, so we'll put the 7 down here. And where do we put the 1? Yes, above the next one across, because it was 17, so we put the 7 down here and the 1 on top of the next column. 4 and 2 and 1 adds up to 7, and 5 and nothing is 5. So 527.936 add 49.55 is 577.486. What about if we're subtracting fractions? Well, subtracting fractions is the same thing, same technique. Say we had 634.92 take away 171.88. Well, we write them on top of each other very neatly. The neater you write it, the easier the sum will be. take away 171.88. Notice how that's not neat. I need to shift it across. I'd need to write it a bit more like this. Then all the numbers are nice and neat below each other. Draw the line across. This time it was convenient because both numbers had two numbers after the decimal point. If this had an extra number, if one of them had an extra number, I'd have to put a 0 after the other one, just so they had both 3. If one of them, say that was 634.9285, so it had 4 numbers after the decimal point, we'd have to add 2 zeros to the 88, just so they had the same number, so it's nice and easy to add. Okay, 2 take away 8. We can't do 2 take away 8, that's a problem. We're going to have to borrow one from our older brother. We'll borrow one from the 9, and what that'll get us is we'll borrow a 10 from the 9, so that 90 becomes an 8, so that's now an 8, but this 2 now has an extra 10, so it's a 12. So we have 12 take away 8, which is 4. See how I did that? I borrowed a 10 from the 9, so the 9 became an 8, and the 2 became a 12. So we have 12 take away 8, which is 4. 8 take away 8 is 0. The dot is still there. 4 take away 1 is 3. 3 take away 7, we can't do it, so we're going to have to borrow 1 again from our older brother. So that 6 becomes a 5 now. He has 1 10 left. Or 1 10 less, I should say. And the 3 is now a 13. 13 take away 7 we can do. We couldn't do 3 take away 7. Some students write 4 or minus 4. You can't do that. You have to borrow 1, so it's now 13 take away 7, which is 6. 5 take away 1 is 4. So 634.92 take away 171.88, which sounds incredibly confusing. If you write it nice and neatly, it just becomes 463.04.